to People's Scrutiny Commission. So we're not filmed tonight, so you don't need to worry about us going out over YouTube. So I just thought I'd make that clear because we broke up last time. Hopefully in the future all meetings will be filmed. But, oh well, I say not filmed. I know Jen has got her camera up, so at the moment we are filmed. So we're being live streamed on Facebook, so that'll be pretty fun. But we're not carrying on the council's YouTube site. Briefly then, do you have apologies?
There's apologies from Councillor Scott. Councillor Bale is on the way, but apologise to shake a few minutes later.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. Safety information, if there is a fire alarm, it won't be a test, so please do evacuate in the appropriate direction. Everyone follow Ian, you'll know where we're going. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? No? Okay, fine. Minutes of previous meeting, you should find them in the pack, pages 7 to 22. Do anyone have any amendments, or is the meeting intent and happy to adopt those? I'll take that there. Everyone is happy to adopt those. Okay, great. Number 5, action tracker. Ian, I said, look, the action track in the paperwork, pages 23 to 26. One thing I noticed, I don't think I had done, I didn't see something against the action tracker, was the piece of work we did last year on conclusion. I think we said we were going to send it to the, is it the Race Equality Panel? I'm not 100% sure if we have. We just double check that, because obviously there were issues, and some of that's referred later on in some of our reports. So we should double check that. I know it was pretty good everywhere else, but that line, I think it was merged with another line, and there's nothing against it. Was there anything else on the action tracker? No? Great. Okay, Chair's business. So first off, I'd just like to let everybody know that Judith Brown, who's a long-serving member of our commission, has retired from us, unfortunately. So Judith represented the Older People's Commission, is that Bristol Older People's Forum? Okay, Bristol Older People's Forum, and I was certainly remember serving on the equivalent of this 15 years ago, I believe, that she did. So she's been coming for many meetings and giving us her wisdom. So Judith's retired. I would like to welcome Trish. Trish, you are a new representative, is that correct? Yeah. Welcome to our meeting. If everyone agrees, firstly, I would like for us to adopt a vote of thanks to Judith for everything that she's done. And secondly, we just have a letter that we're going to send around just on behalf of the People's Scrutiny Commission and its members. And if members of the Commission want to sign it, we'll send that to Judith just to say a thank you.
Oh, she'd like that.
Great. Was there anyone else who wanted to comment on that, or shall we move on?
I think she has a level of experience that few are going to match, to be honest. I think it's not a lifelong membership to her.
Does she really deserve that level of punishment? I know that's fair on everybody. Anyway, that was just an update regarding Judith. Secondly, the inspection of 7 services recently occurred by Ofsted. Richard, do you want to just briefly give members an update on the result of that inspection and what the authority had to say? After that's happened, I would allow some brief questions or statements by members.
Yeah, so we had the final report at the end of last week, and it was published on Wednesday on the local authority. I think it's now on the website. It was on Friday. It should be published on Friday. So obviously, you'll be aware that the report showed that there was sufficient progress in 4 out of the 5 areas that have been identified at the previous inspection in 2019. And those areas are obviously picked up through our state of action. So we welcome the report and the findings and recognise that we've made some progress in those key areas, and it positively identifies the work that officers and work across our work with parents and stakeholders and partners in the local areas made a difference. But we do recognise that there's still more work to do in all of those areas, and it's not about stopping our work at this point. So we're already taking advice and working on our next steps around each of the areas, but particularly, obviously, we need to focus in on the fifth area, which was the fractured relationship with parents and carers, which is still seen to need particular work. So we're already in contact with Contact and the DFE to talk to them, and we anticipate that we'll have an action plan that needs to be created around the fifth area, the parent-carer fractured relationships. So we'll be working on that, excuse me, and that will obviously come back to scrutiny for further discussion at a later date. What we intend to do is use some of the findings from the report to inform the SEND partnership plan, which we've already been developing as a sort of next step of our written statement of action. That finished, but we're now looking at our next action plan, so it'll be a partnership plan. And we're working through incorporating some of the recommendations in the report into that one. And then that will form our new strategy and action plan going forwards. And we will use that in the similar government structure that we've got already in place of the written statement of action. We'll replicate that for the new plan as well, because we're keen that we don't lose that scrutiny and that momentum that we go through that government structure. So our next steps really are to formalise that communication with the DFE around what's required as a result of the inspection. I think we're expecting that in writing next week. So we will then be moving forward with them on that, and we will obviously be publishing our new partnership plan in the new year, and that will take up our new sort of monitoring and sort of action plan through the next. The action plan is 12 months, so that will be monitored with them. But the partnership plan is able to go on longer term as the written statement of action did over a 3-year period. So I think that's a summary from my perspective.
Great, thank you. Did any members want to ask any questions or make a quick point on that? So, Christine?
So mine's about point 5, about the parental engagement. You would have had that in the WSOA. I'm just wondering why it is that you feel that you haven't achieved that.
Well, obviously there are some key issues around the relationship with parents in terms of our formal co-production issues that we've discussed in scrutiny before, so that was part of the issue there. And obviously that is a key area that we've said that we will look at to address in future. So that will form part of the action plan as we move forward. And I know contacts with the DFE are very keen for us to progress that at pace too. So I think that's one of the key areas. In terms of our co-production, we obviously don't have that formal arrangement. We have our co-production happening throughout the period of written statement of action, but recently that formal process has broken down, as you know. So that is the key area really that we need to focus on. I think if you look at the report, it does outline that the experiences of parents and carers is still report that it's a struggle for them, and that they recognise that not all services provide in a timely way what they need as a family. So those areas are obviously key to us improving that relationship. There was some signs that for newer parents in the system, the experience is more positive, but obviously that is not a vast majority at this point. So again, that's one of the reasons why that area is still identified as high profile for improvement.
Thank you, Chair. This is obviously one of those things you must take because everyone fixates on the negative side, which is obviously point 5. Points 1 to 4, obviously congratulations, fine with that. But point 5 is where the real concern is, and I think you'd expect us to spend most of our time. My question, you say you're going to progress this at pace. How does that translate at pace? How quickly are we going to see that? Then with the detail is sort of important to this bit.
If I come in there, that would be helpful. So what happens is where sufficient progress has not been made in an area following a SEND inspection, what happens is there is an accelerated action plan, and that's a partnership piece. It's sort of like a mini written statement of action around one area of serious weakness or serious concern. So what we'll be doing is we will be working up an accelerated action plan that will last for about 12 months and will be monitored closely with the DFE. So we will start to work on that and develop that, and that will be with key partners. And then we will have DFE oversight, and they will come, I think it's either every 3 months or every 6 months that they come and have a milestones meeting with us. But it will take on that notion of having some key outcomes that we want to achieve, and then some very specific time milestones and dates by which they wish to be achieved. So it will take on that sort of format.
Okay, so sort of to me it sounds like it's quite open-ended. This could take a pronounced period of time until we actually have a plan agreed, actioned and in train. Am I right on that?
It will take some discussion and some negotiation. Those discussions have already started. So the minute the inspectors left the building, we started to work on some of the plans, and we weren't sure whether or not we would be asked by the DFE to do an accelerated action plan. Sometimes local authorities are asked to, sometimes they're not. And it looks likely that we will be asked to do that, although we've not received a written confirmation around it. Once we do have that written confirmation, then things will start to move really quickly in terms of getting that plan drawn together and getting that agreed and signed off by the DFE. So there will be some swift action around it.
Yeah. And with your indulgence, Chair, will this commission have sight of what that action plan is, or will we be able to have a look at that, even if it's confidence or private? But I'm intrigued, as you would expect, to know exactly what's happening, and I would like to see that.
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't share that with you. It will be part of, it will probably be an appendix to the SEND action plan that we talked about earlier, so then it will be shared with Scrutiny members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think what would also be good is if you can bring that before it's finalised to Scrutiny members, just so we can have an input with you. I mean, I realise that would be a formal meeting, but if we could do that in a briefing, that would be really good.
Yeah, I mean, we did meet to talk about the early structure of the SEND plan and talk about the headings, and we gave some feedback then, and we'll be back on some of that with our sort of further iterations of it. But yeah, absolutely, quite happy to speak with you to discuss it before formal publication.
Something similar to that would be really useful.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, you're sort of aware that this commission passed a resolution last meeting, that we felt that you should look to rework with the Bristol Parent Care Forum. Between over the last sort of 6 months, have there been any meetings with Bristol Parent Care Forum to see whether or not it was possible to move forward with them or not?
I think we haven't meetings over the last 6 months, I think, probably a while back. We did say that the request from the Parent Care Forum to meet, that we would arrange a time after the publication of the SEND report. And I had an email from Sarah Beckley last week, and a very, very positive email, and she was very supportive of the and complimentary about the achievement in the 4 areas and the improvement that we've seen there. And we will be arranging a meeting in due course to further the conversation.
Thanks, thank you for that. I think what would be really useful for us is if we can then get some feedback when we look at the actual plan on what happened with going in that meeting, how that went. So, Councillor Townsend.
Who's Sarah Beckley?
She's the person who I've had an email from the Bristol Parent Care Forum.
Thanks. Are we happy to move on? Because I realise we've got a busy agenda. So, also, still on Chair's business, I'm afraid. I did briefly mention it earlier that we passed a resolution at our last meeting. So we passed a resolution on the issue of the social media monitoring, which of course involves officers of the Bristol Parent Care Forum. We've also had this come up at full council, so I'm not going to completely reopen or rehash that debate. I wanted to feed back to you that I had an email from the, actually from you, telling me that a paper is expected to come to Cabinet in January, and this issue will be addressed in that paper. I personally have got to say, feel that a lot of time has been lost and have felt that this issue is going to be addressed far faster than that. I also note in the reply, it didn't necessarily say that there would be an investigation, it just said the paper would be investigated. I wanted to find out what the feelings were of members here, and I have been promised by the chair of OSMB that anything that we wish to raise with them can be raised at their next meeting, which was going to be tomorrow, but now might actually be next week. Did any members want to make a comment on that, or we have to move on?
I'm not really sure.
So what did you say?
I'm fine, thank you.
Right, okay, but I don't think anybody is, because we will wait then for the, to see what's in the paperwork in January to Cabinet. Are you okay with that? Okay, that's fine. You've got a lot faster expectations. I'm going to override my iPad switch off, which I actually set to switch off every 2 minutes, just to annoy the hell out of me. Thank you, Rosie. And we get on to the next agenda item, which is public forum. Jen, we've got a statement from you and 2 questions. I will let you decide what order you want to take them in. If you can keep the statement to a couple of minutes, we'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Is it okay if we start with questions?
That's absolutely fine, yes.
I don't have the original question in front of me because it's all done digitally now, but I do have supplementary questions. Shall I just launch into that?
Do you have the answer?
I had it, it's in my email inbox, which I can't access.
Okay, but you read the answer.
I've read the answer.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Members, you will find the answer under the public forum element if on your iPads or computers. Yes, if you want to just go straight into supplementary, that'd be fine.
So my supplementary for question 1 is, in my question I asked for reasons but was given only one. We've had an emergency annual review in this time frame because the school broke equality laws. That wasn't due to the global pandemic. So I want to know what other reasons have caused the increased demand in annual reviews. Thank you.
Thank you. Richie, did you want to?
So I think it would be difficult to go into each and every one of the various different reasons and rationales for why we might have needed to hold an annual review out of usual timescales for children and young people. But I think it is fair to be able to suggest that actually the global pandemic had such a significant impact on our children, young people, schools and families that the difficulties that were being experienced were exacerbated. And I just wanted to be really clear as well about the term emergency annual review. So I think it's important to note that that terminology is used around any review that's held that is different to the typically set timescales. Because obviously an annual review happens once a year, so it could be for a whole host and variety of different reasons. And rather than sort of collect all those in a very specific way, those notes will be held very much on file for that individual child and young person. So I think it's fair to say that whatever difficulties those young people were experiencing were, for whatever reason, exacerbated during the time period of the global pandemic.
Thanks. Jay, did you have a second supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got a second one. I have a supplementary for my question 2, rather, sorry. So, if effective SEND work relies on local area partnerships, but families are forced to judicial review the council and launch equality proceedings against schools, how does the local authority envisage repairing the fractured relationships with parent carers?
I think this relates back to one of the issues I talked about earlier, that the fractured relationship with parents and carers is affected by some of the systems and processes that we have in place and the partnership working. And like I said, the other parts of the plan, while showing sufficient progress, there is still work to do around all of these areas. and that partnership working is still a work in progress as well across the local area. It's definitely improving, but we've still got work to do, and I recognise that some of the partnership working with schools is still a piece of work in progress as well, and will continue to be.
I think it's fair to say as well that the SEND review did recognise this point as well, and there is a point within the SEND review consultation that was talking about the levers that local authorities have to ensure that provision is in place, one of several factors that ensuring provision is in place. So I think that point has been recognised as being a national issue.
Thank you. Jane, do you want to move on to your statement now? If you can say keep to a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Well, since I submitted the statement, we've had the Ofsted re-inspection result. Whilst the Council may have made sufficient progress on the first 4 areas of significant weakness, Ofsted and the CQC still made plenty of comments within those about how families were being failed within that system. The 5th area of weakness about the fractured relationship with parents will remain contentious until the city stops failing SEND pupils and the full extent of their spies' lies and no production comes out. As a parent, I personally have to deal with that failure every single day. The current fund is the 3rd alternative learning provider suspending provision because the council won't pay for it. The council always blames the providers for delays, but the common denominator in this is always the council, and it's always somebody else's fault. 3 different providers since September have suspended provision because the council won't pay. I know I'm not the only parent experiencing this. I know quite a few others as well. I currently have listed around 10 provisions missing from our EHCP in my submitted statement. Provisions that add up to hours of support and education lost. My child will never get those back. I expect those missing provisions are also everybody else's fault again. Some of those missing provisions would be mental health support, basically picking up the pieces of the SEND failure we have been through since 2016. So we might have historic SEND issues, but the fact I'm here with so much missing provision shows the issue is as current as ever. I consider this missing provision to be education theft and support stealing. This is a failure in management that comes right down from the top, like when you send a warning of judicial review letter to the Executive Director of People which gets ignored, probably because it's me and they don't like me, which I think is proven by the real-time spying that I have submitted. This dystopian system is a deliberate decision by the People Directorate and presumably the CEO of Bristol City Council. This is a barbaric system. And also, I'll throw the Mayor's office in there as well, because they're also responsible for this mess. Recently, my child spoke to me about how sad and angry he feels about missing out on the whole experience of secondary school and all the opportunities and friendships he will never have. He is finding it hard coming to terms with the fact he will never have this time again. The message this council repeatedly gives to the victims of Bristol SEND is that they are not worth bothering with. It's damaging. And the result of this calculating, conniving way these overpaid people remain allowed to ruin children's lives is not on. And I'd just like to finish by saying that I hear from SEND parents regularly. And the stories I hear are upsetting. So if you think it's just me that's having these issues, it is not. There are families all over Bristol and at the start of the EHCP process who are being failed. I had a lady cry on me the other week because her family had failed her first child, her family's first child had been failed, and the second one was being failed with EHCPs. And a year from EHCP, I don't think so. And if you look at the figures that are coming through, there's another, 70 odd ones that are between the sort of 40 and 50 week mark, which means although you might clear the ones that are over a year, we've got another load of those moving on. And I need people here to understand how this is affecting families in Bristol, not just me, but so many other families. I've been coming here years. It's got to stop. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. One thing I wanted to just pull out that you raised, it's not the first time I've heard this raised, is the issue of payments being made. So this is where providers have complained they've not had their payments made, and this actually resulted in some providers suspending provision to children with alternative provision. I'm sure it's not the only area of the council which is sometimes struggling to pay its bills, but it does concern me. I was just wondering if any other members of the Commission have had this raised with them at all by parents or heard about this or not? I've got a couple in here. Councillor Townsend and Councillor Bowles.
I just wanted to point out that I've been through this and just raising that now, so I think the question as well.
Okay. Councillor Townsend?
Yeah, so I've had two cases, well, I'm aware of two cases. One is mine, where a child in year 6, who should be in year 7, didn't get the school place in year 7, and they currently still reside in year 6, despite having a plan. That's the first case. The second case is exactly what has been raised in public forum, of the council failing to pay the provider the cost of the place and the place there, and therefore the parent coming under pressure basically, and getting letters from the provider saying that their child can't go back. And then this parent had more than one child into that place, and basically they said, we haven't been paid for the first one, and the second one can't start because we need the money. And that was myself and another Green councillor that were dealing with that.
Does the Commission think we should refer this to the Audit Committee, this specific point, so they're going to look into regarding payments? Because, I mean, in the past, it's been an issue for the Council. It does take a certain level of bureaucracy to process payments, and it is an area which can quite easily fall down sometimes. Are we happy perhaps to refer that to Audit Committee? Okay, if you can make a note for me to do that, and I'll refer it to the Audit Chair, and just ask them to perhaps look into it, if there's anything to look into. I know in the past actually Richard has helped unblock this issue before. I'm just worried if it's happening more than once or twice, and if it's actually a real issue in the system. Yeah, okay, thank you. Are we okay to move on, everybody? Right, thank you very much for your statement, Jane. Okay. So, I'm just using one device. Right, okay. I understand by the Home Secretary was emailing around confidential documents between different devices. I feel the temptation myself. Right, okay, let's find the road on the agenda. I have no idea. Different document. Right, here we go. So public forums, over, so 8 quarterly public. Will we have a break at this point? Or will it just push on?
No,
After this report, great, okay. Number 8, quarterly performance report. We've got that in your pack. Did you want to just briefly introduce this, because it's a slightly new system, for a couple of minutes, and then we will go to the councillors who submitted questions in advance to you, okay?
Sure, thank you. I'm Nick the manager of the performance team. So as noted, the report this time is quite different to how it had been in previous years. We're now using the thematic performance clinic approach. So this is linked to the 7 themes in the council corporate strategy and business plan. So the report is not just, obviously it is the data, each of the theme reports, the summary report and the analysis of data. So all the data that previously been there is still there. Plus there is now a kind of a quarterly summary on the actions within the business plan. So each of the 19 actions within the plan, each one of them will be evaluated as to whether it's on track or not, and comment the relevant manager for that. So that's additional information that didn't used to be in the previous forums reports. So in addition to that, the structure is based on 7 themes. So each one of them is owned or rather led by a director, and so there's a report from that director outlining where they're assessing the theme is for that relevant quarter. Now, that's the overall performance structure. For the report that's come to the Scrutiny Commission, all the 7 summary reports are there, but the appendix actually has been just to the relevant data points and actions that are relevant for this People Commission, and then the other points go to the relevant 11 Scrutiny Commission to avoid duplication. So you've got all 7 themed reports, and the cover report highlights which ones are relevant to you, and the appendix of data is just for this commission.
Thank you very much, Nick, for that introduction. I'll go to members now. Now, some members did continue to advance a few questions, so I'll go to those first, and then open it up to other members if they have any other questions. We do have a reasonable representation of officers here from most of the services. Thank you very much. So first, Councillor Townsend, you submitted some questions. Did you want to follow with those up?
I've not had the answers, Chair. What I've got is a copy from Ian of the questions that were submitted in totality from myself, but also from others.
So the answers were emailed to me.
Wow.
I tell you what, they're on your email.
Sorry.
I'll keep you interested in trying to find them, and I'll skip over them, and I'll come back to you. Is that okay at the end? Is that the best way to do it? Councillor White, you had also raised a question. I don't think you've seen the answers on your email earlier. You'll do the same, okay. Then I've got Councillor Stone, she's not here, so we've got through those pretty quick. Councillor West and Councillor Bales, did you have any questions? Councillor Weston next.
Thank you. I have to say, I actually found this quite enlightening, and I appreciate the way it's set out, and I like the fact of it. The bit that sort of baffled me, and this is a presentation which I know I go into some detail, is, for example, we take children and young people, quarter one, the report of it, actions on schedule 9 of 11, and then priority metrics on target 1 of 4, but I couldn't match the number of bullet points up against the actions on schedule, so I found it a bit tricky in the presentation sheet. I realised what happened in the end, but it didn't take me a bit of head scratching on it. My question actually, if I may, was on, so this is page 31 of our pack, so it's the tackling high levels of absence and suspensions. There is a plan to reduce the government's working together to improve school attendance for academic year. Forgive me, I'm not normally on people. What is that programme? Because at the moment it sounds very good if you know what it is, but actually I have no idea. Can someone enlighten me? Page 31, so the thematic performance clinic report, children and people, quarter 1. Tackle high level of absence and suspensions. There is a plan to introduce the government's working together to improve school attendance. What is that and how will it be effective?
It's a good question. I will need to come back to you and look at that. That is something that's been worked on by one of the teams within my directorate, but I'll need to go and look at that before I give you any detail on it. I'm sorry.
Maybe just have half page, just someone link me with something. So
Yeah,
I know what
that's no
exactly it
problem.
is.
I'll do that. That's no problem at all.
Okay.
Maybe another one.
Well, no, I'll let you have a crack at that one.
Councillor White, and Councillor Bales, have you read it? Right, Councillor Bales and Councillor White.
I've not got much of a voice today, so I'll be gentle and I'll shut up quite quickly. I just wanted to know whether the quality of EHCPs have improved. Sorry, my voice is going. I think we're all aware that if they're not qualified, specifying schools can't follow them. And then if schools don't follow them, children don't get the right education, parents end up taking the council to court and they generally win. That costs the council a lot of money, it costs parents lots of money, so have the quality of the HCPs improved?
I'll ask Richard or Vicky to reply to that. Very briefly though, I will say that the inspector did point out that he felt that the quality of plans were quite improved in Bristol. He made quite a big deal of an improvement in quality. Anyway, I'll let Richard or Vicky respond.
Thank you, that was what I was going to say. There was a real thorough investigation during the inspection of EHCPs, and that looked both at quantity and quality. So the whole project, the whole Time for Change project has been around EHCPs and has been co-produced looking at both those pieces. So the new plans that were being issued, because the portal went live in July, so the new style plans are now actually coming out of the system, and they look and feel very different to those original plans that were written. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yeah, I found my question, and the answer is, I guess it's a meeting from Julian, so this was just... Steve, this was just a question about we're slightly under target placing fewer people in residential care. And I just wondered if this was due to difficulties in placing home care, because of the difficulties in staffing, or if something else about getting social workers to change their mind for different position.
Yeah, I can respond to that. The actual figure has actually improved, and I checked and checked again why, because the arrow is going down for some reason on the report, but it's currently, the target is 61% and it's gone up to 61.6% in the previous quarter, which was...
I think
Do we go through it? I think.
Well, I'll bring Councillor Weston in and I'll come back to you, and we're probably actually going to be concluding this section, so, Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chair. Mine, strange enough, is actually on one of the second questions on one of the topics, which is on track, which I know is an unusual one, but it caught my eye. It's in the poverty section, HCW priority 3, so page 57, PHCW 3.1, and it's about the fuel action poverty plan. Now, the notes beforehand say this was signed off in April. Now, things have changed a fair amount since April, so I just want to make sure that we're not resting on laurels, that although the plan was signed off in April, this is kept under rolling review, because things have got a lot worse when it comes to fuel poverty since then. Can anyone give me some assurance on that?
We can certainly report back to you, Councillor Weston, in regards to that. Rest assured, there's significant work underway due to the whole cost of living crisis and the impending winter. Penny German in the community's neighbourhoods team will be taking the lead on, well, he's taking the lead on all that, so we can come back with an update for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. Actually, I do have a brief question to raise. It's from page, online anyway, page 50 to 51, it's saying, which is the actual targets list, and ES priority to access to employment. There's a target around increasing percentage of adults with learning difficulties known to social care who are in paid employment. It mentions that there actually has been a significant increase, which is probably not reflected in the target by the We Work for Everyone Employment Support Programme. I doubt there's anyone in the room who knows precisely what that is, but if there is anyone in the room who knows precisely what it is, could you briefly tell us and maybe tell us where to go look on the website to find out more?
Councillor Holland.
Oh, right, brilliant. Thanks,
I'll do this because this is one of my favourite projects. So We Work for Everyone, it's a project that is mostly 50% funded by Europe. You can still get European funds, you know. It's been going for about 18 months, I think, and it was match funded by WECA, so it's a project across the WECA authorities. And it is what it says on the tin, actually. It's about giving supports with navigators and mentors for people with learning disabilities into employment. And I read that note myself about them saying that because the figure, the red box and the down arrow, wasn't consistent with what's been reported back to us on the programme board for We Work for Everyone. Certainly they're engaging with lots of employers, and that's been a good news story. I'll be very open with you, my only question about the programme is that it's, I was going to say easier, but to get younger people with learning disabilities into work, and one of the ambitions of the programme was to get those adults of working age, so people, 30 up to sort of 50 into employment. It hasn't reached as many people in that cohort as we would have liked, and I constantly say that at the programme board. But it's and it's also it's the reason why there's probably nobody here who can answer directly is because it sits in employment and skills, but politically I'm responsible for it. So it is a great programme, and I can send you, or I'll send Ian, and he can send it around the link to there's a dedicated website for employers and parents and carers of people with learning disabilities so that they can get onto that programme. But it is really good, and I think there's some videos on the website, isn't there, of the experience of some people on the programme.
Great, thanks. I'll definitely take you for that. If you can send that to Ian and Ian can get it arranged. The reason I raised that is because later on we're going to discuss where we want to do our inquiry day. That was one of the areas being suggested, so I wanted to make sure that, in fact, there was already enough initiatives in place that we shouldn't be looking into that area, but it's certainly, so I always bring that to everyone's attention. Thank you very much, Councillor Holland. Councillor Townsend, so you wanted to question?
Yeah, there is, within the answers, it's a bit in yellow. It was I asked a question about the school absence strategy. And basically my question was, we're into term 2, so what are the early indications of how effective the strategy is in terms of removing the barriers to school attendance?
Yes, so data will be collected for the end of term 2, so we should have more detail at that point. And it's also going to form part of the process for the thematic performance clinics as well, so it will be picked up there as part of that work after Christmas. But we will have some dates by the end of this term. We'll pull that together. I'll have to share that with the panel.
Any more?
Have you got term 1 data?
I don't have information on term 1 now.
Okay.
What we can have is we can have the whole of the autumn term, which is term 1 and 2 together. So that will probably be more robust in terms of the actual figures, because obviously in one term it's not necessarily very much time to be in school together. Excuse me. To get the data together. So when we've got term 2, it should be more robust. The further we get through the year, the better the data policies.
And would that roughly be sort of February then? I'm just hoping when we will have those two. So by I'm old school.
Yeah.
In my
So this
it used to be 3 terms. But
So,
now
so,
there's
so,
6
so
terms.
the end of the autumn term at Christmas, that data will be a whole term. It will be more robust than for the first half term. So we will have that for the start of term 3, which is the start of the spring term in old money. After Christmas, yeah.
Okay, right, that's fine. I'll get there eventually. One day I'll catch up with the terms. Any more questions, Councillor Townsend?
And I'm still not really.
I'm still not really, I mean, there's an explanation as to why the EHCP sit under the homes and communities. It's just that I'm looking at who the officer is that kind of oversees that. I've never heard of the officer. I'm still not really clear why an education, a purely education children's services area would sit under homes and communities.
I was just going to note it's because of the nature of the corporate strategy. So it's not following directorate structures, it's following the theme structure of the council's corporate strategy, which makes it disability within home and communities. But it's coming to the scrutiny because obviously from a directorate perspective, that's where ownership is.
So it's considered more of a disability. So it's framed within a disability as opposed to education.
Yes.
It's a bit I don't get. I don't understand why.
Because there's a section within that, within the disability priority in the corporate strategy, which is about sound. So the data of that is matching where that focus is.
I think we can raise it and suggest that there's some confusion as to why it might sit where it is. But, you know, it is there, and you put it somewhere else, then there might be someone else who says it should be back in the original place. So we will certainly raise it, and always open to make things more logical if it's possible to do so.
Councillor Massey.
Thank you. Bottom of page 56, it's really good to see that the number of good performance and quality of care rated by the CQC has improved significantly. That's a really positive bonus.
Do you want to just point out exactly where that was on page 56? I'm looking online and I'm trying to pin that down.
GPN 294.
Ah, okay, I see it. Right, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I always wonder if two different devices show pages differently or not. Yes.
It is, thank you, Councillor Massey. It's good to recognise that. I think in Bristol we are, in a good position because of a lot of the work that's gone on around quality assurance and quality improvement. The national average is around 85%, So we're a good 10% above the national average in regards to the providers that we have that are rated good or outstanding. It's a good position to be in.
Thank you. Are there any final questions before we move on to the next report? Oh, Councillor Weston. Okay.
I suspect this will be one where I need to add additional information. But page 59, the EDO Priority 1 City, where we talk about the civic life in universities and all the rest of it, can I ask for some more detail as to actually what that is? And is it a case that we want the universities to play more of the life as institutions, or the students who go there play more part of the civic life? I'm not unsure as to what the goal on that is. I just wonder if someone could send me a link or some information as to exactly what that is.
I believe I've been told that we can send you the file. Is that roughly right?
I think we can send you some clarity as to the intention behind the indicator. To be fair, I'm not really up to speed with it.
That's fine.
Yeah, you can get some detail. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. Right, next, if everyone's okay with that, which is number 9, the corporate risk report. Are you introducing that one as well, Nick?
That's myself.
Oh, Paul. Oh, I see. He's right behind you. Paul, do you want to introduce that briefly?
Yes, fine. Good evening. I'm Paul Dury, Risk Insurance Senior Officer. I'm here to briefly introduce the people risks from the Q2 corporate risk report. It should be noted that this relates to the risks identified as of September 2022. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the current significant risks to the Council achieving strategic aims and objectives. This report also summarises the progress and the actions taken in managing these risks. In summary, including the report, there are 5 high threat risks, 1 medium threat risk, 1 critical external risk, and 1 medium external risk. Of these risks, the significant updates for Q2 are as follows. There is 1 new threat risk, which is CRR50, impact of adult care charging reforms legislation. The risk rating is 3 times 7 with the 21 high risk. There is 1 improving threat risk, which is CRR39, adult and social care major provider and supplier failure. This risk improves from a 3 by 7, 21 high risk to a 4 by 5, 20 high risk. There is 1 deteriorating threat risk. This is CRR45, which is a failure to deliver a statutory duty in respect to children. This risk has increased in rating from a 3 by 3, 9 medium risk to a 3 by 5 high risk. There is 1 critical external risk, which is ECC5, cost of living crisis, impact on citizens and communities. This risk has a risk rating of 4 by 7 and a 28 critical risk. And there is 1 improving external risk, which is BCCC4, COVID-19 population and health. This risk rating is improved from a 15 high risk to a 9 medium risk. I'm happy to take any further questions on the content of the report. However, if the query relates to the content of the risk action itself, colleagues from the People Directorate in the room will be best placed to advise as to why new risk has been identified or any changes identified in the risk.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from Commissioner members? Councillor Weston.
Thank you. On the new external civil contingency risk, obviously the red one essentially, I was looking at page 10, and it obviously has current risk assessment in red, and the risk tolerance level is a lot lower. So if you can talk about why that is. I couldn't understand why something was so critical, but the tolerance level was so low.
The tolerance is what we would seek as an organisation to tolerate for that risk. So it's almost within our risk appetite, we would tolerate that risk to be a 9. We wouldn't, so it's kind of an ambition in a way. It's a good way to look at the tolerance level of risk, or our minimum ambition.
Stephen.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to give an update on CRR50, the impact of adult care charging reforms. We will actually be able to reduce that significantly because the government have delayed the charging reforms by 2 years. So I'll make sure we've updated that on the system because it will no longer be that high. And also, just to comment on the next one, which is about adult social care major provider supplier failure, just in the context of Councillor Massey's comments, I didn't want people to be confused by that sounding contradictory, but this isn't about the quality of the actual provision, it's just about the risk that providers are experiencing, the financial risk that providers are experiencing in relation to cost of living, and that we need to work closely with providers to avoid them falling into financial difficulty and supply failure.
Thanks. Can I just briefly follow that one up then? 'Cause, I mean, obviously that can be quite crucial in certain areas of the country. Like Cornwall have been very badly hit, particularly regarding staffing, and of course that has a real knock-on effect. What's the current situation here in Bristol? So we heard about 9 months ago that projections around 1,000 people short working in the care sector. Is that roughly still where we're at, or is it worse? Was it better?
It's better than it was a year ago when we were, I think I mentioned earlier, we were having the providers handing back packages of care to us. We have got some providers that are coming to us in difficulty, but we've only got one care home that's actually closing, and it's a national organisation that's closing several homes nationally, which is Amberley Grove in Bedminster. So we are working closely with all of our care providers. There is some additional winter funding and other funding that has been confirmed by the government next year, mostly in relation and in the context of supporting hospital discharge, but we do expect some of that money to be able to support care providers to be able to pay at least national living wage and improve recruitment and retention.
Thank you. Any more questions at all? No? Okay, I think we're happy. So agenda item 10, education, health and care performance update, and I think we're going to start off with the introduction.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say, you know, rather than a snapshot of it, we'd like you all to review on whether this is a snapshot, whether it's more of a report still. But what we try to do is just get it down to some of the key information. So, obviously, I won't go through the report, but I think the key points to know are that requests for the HCD assessments continue to increase, 17.5% at the moment. The number of plans that we've issued, though, is also increasing, and we've had a 44% increase in the number issued in the same period, in comparison to the same period last year. We've got some increased capacity in the team now. We've filled some vacancies, which is helping with our capacity and our ability to get the plans out. Our current percentage of timeliness is sitting at 37.3, which is obviously significantly below the 50% that was set as a target. I think we noted previously that our capacity to reach that target is limited. The number of cases exceeding 52 weeks, which again came to you in the previous scrutiny to talk about, where we had moved to issue a draft plan for all of those children by the end of October. They now all have a final one issued by the end of November. So from that point on, our commitment is that no families will wait longer than 52 weeks. Recognise that there are a significant group in the 40-week to 51 week, which is a group that we're already focused on now. So we're aiming to really reduce those wait times beyond 20 weeks as we move forward into the last couple of months and into next year. We've also included some information on annual reviews. So annual review data, we have a KPI linked to that, but we haven't been reporting on it for some time because we had issues with the reliability and robustness of the data. We've done a lot of work on that. We have much better data in place now, and we will also have to start reporting that if partly going to return at the end of the year. So that data will become obviously publicly available as part of the local authorities' data. But we will obviously at the end of this report give an overview around annual reviews. So we have a new annual review pod, which is a group of people focused on annual reviews and making sure that the quality of those and the timeliness of those is scrutinised. And that's currently sitting at 75% of all EHCPs have had an annual review. So that's where we sit at the moment, because I know annual review data has been something you've been interested in for a while, so I think that was useful for you.
Thank you very much. I'll kick off with a couple of questions and then I'll ask anyone else has any. Firstly, I mean, congratulations on the number of finalised plans in September. That's a significant achievement. Are you able to repeat that in future months?
I think some of our learning from that will hope to repeat. I think one of the things we did, and Vicky may not be able to add more detail, is around our preparedness for the summer holiday period, and making sure we've lined up several ducks so that we could actually use that period fruitfully to sort of continue processing and sorting statutory assessments. Whether we can't replicate that on a monthly basis. I think that there's an element there of the summer period enabling us to do that, but actually the way in which we worked this year that we did, we got better value out of that time than we have previously. No? Okay.
Thanks. I mean, obviously, to be able to clear the legacy cases, I think, or the backlog within the system, you need to sort of be processing, completing £90 to £100 a month. So that's sort of an area I'd often push at. Personally, I think that figure is a little bit more important than the 20 weeks one. I realise that's all the government measures, but in the sense the totality of the plans completed has a big impact there on being able to meet that increased demand.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking again for the future, do you think demand will increase again next year?
Well, it shows all signs this year. We've said this every year for the last 2 or 3 years, haven't we? So I think we anticipate that it will continue. I think you're right about the 20-week timeliness. I think we're also looking at how we reduce wait times for everyone. So with the limited resource, we can only use the resources that we've got in so many ways. So I think one of the areas that we really want to push is actually pulling down that wait beyond 20 weeks to as little as possible for all families, and that's quite a difficult balancing act for us and a challenge with the resource that we have. But what we obviously we could focus all of our resource on the 20 weeks and really improve our percentage timeliness, but that would mean we would then have families waiting a long time, so we get that inequality in the system in terms of the length of wait as well. So that is one of the things where we're looking to sort of review how we work, and we're interested in identifying some KPIs beyond the 20 weeks that would help demonstrate a change and impact for the better. It isn't maybe about the 20 weeks, but it is about average wait times, etc. Looking at that.
One thing I was just wondering, perhaps you could measure is whether a caseworker had been assigned to the case or not. Because I know that quite often cases can be stuck in the system and we still don't even have a caseworker assigned. Are you aware if everybody in the 41 plus week category now has a caseworker or not?
If we could just come in there. So one of the things that we'd really like to do, and one of the things that is in the sort of the first page of the report, is we'd like to come and do another sort of workshop with members of Scrutiny, if that's okay. And what we'd really like to do is look at the really specific KPIs that we're thinking about and really break them down and have a really detailed conversation with you so that we're reporting on the things that you will find helpful. And what we could do is think about that as one of the KPIs. And we've got a slide deck that we've been working on that we would like to be able to kind of share and have a think about at some point in the future. So it'd be great if we could organise a day to sort of look at those in more depth.
That sounds great. I'm sure we want to do that. And just to be that, I think this report is just the right amount of detail. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'll make this up now to anyone else. Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Close.
I do, Chair, but Michael Coops turn stuff off
and do something about a problem or something. It's to do with the annual reviews. It's at the bottom of one page and at the top of another. Sorry, it's where it's something about statutory timescales after the annual review.
93.
Yes, that's page 94, annual reviews.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the line you're referring to, which is broken into the page, shall I read it out because your computer's updating, is Each SEND officer currently has on average 260 children or young people with varying levels of complex disability and vulnerability assigned to them each. This is a high number. The LA aspires to ensure families have the timely support they need within current staffing levels and to ensure annual review paperwork after the meeting meets statutory timescales. And Rebecca,
Yeah, because so my question relates to the annual review statutory timescales. My understanding is that there aren't any in the code. So what is it that you're referring to? Because I am aware that sometimes if there's requests for changes in plans, it can take a long time for a final plan to be issued following a review. And we've had situations where schools are reviewing. And actually, so therefore it's the final plan, isn't it, or is that changed through casework or whatever, that is the only thing that could be statutorily challenged, or is there now a statutory process established in case law around annual reviews?
So this is one of the reasons why the DfE have decided to include the the annual review data in the SEND2 reporting piece, to try and ensure that there is greater clarity. And again, the SEND review, which we promised may be with us before Christmas, we hope that it will be with us before Christmas, the findings should outline some of these issues. Measuring performance in annual reviews is complex, and that's why it's taken us some time to get our data system set up, because there are some pieces that we do need to look at. And the code is clear that the paperwork should be sent out 2 weeks before an annual review. So there are some milestones. I don't think it's a must. The must are the legally enforceables. I think it's a could or a should within code speak. So we do need to make sure that we're reporting on those and looking at them in a robust sort of way. But you're right, the reporting around those initial needs assessments is far more sort of secure than it is around annual review processes.
Yes, I'm still not clear. So I'm not talking about leading up to an annual review. I'm talking the annual review's finished, there's requests for changes, or there's a need for a change in placements. And what we're seeing, the children's not getting those plans revised. So therefore, the changes that were needed and agreed at the annual review were not implemented. That's what I'm asking for. And the timescales between the review meeting and that revised final plan being issued, and therefore becoming a document that can be enforced.
So that's the piece that is going to become much more clear when we start being able to formally report on those bits of information. So that's what the work is being geared towards, is enabling us to have greater clarity around those different pieces. So there will be, from time to time, some delays in terms of securing a placement for a child or a young person, especially those with more complex needs where perhaps there's been a placement breakdown.
any other councillors got any other questions? Councillor Michael, so Councillor Weston.
I just wanted to ask whether keep being told that we're going to get some more caseworkers. We've been told that for years. How's that going? Are we getting any more? It's really important.
I'm sorry, I was finding it a little bit difficult to hear. I know you've got a sore throat at the moment. I'm so sorry. I think it was members of case officers.
Have they materialised yet?
Yeah. So if you look into the report, it does describe that we've got those increased numbers of educational psychology posts and also those numbers of case officers as well. But bearing in mind the financial situation that the council currently finds itself in, whilst we might benefit from having some additional capacity within the service, we have to sort of cut our cloth according to the numbers of current officers that we've got within the services.
So you've recruited some?
Yeah, we've recruited and they're in place alongside the educational psychologists as well. So there was a growth bid that went in. It was about probably a year or so now that the papers were looked at, and those officers are now in place, yeah.
Like when officers leave, what happens then? Because our parents notified, it's not project that we are against it, we could be sending emails asking for updates on issues that parents bring to us, and so we don't know, and it's not getting answered.
So I think, across the City Council at the moment, we have various recruitment freezes. So it is a challenge when a colleague moves on. Often what happens within the Senate team is that the colleagues are seconded or might move into a promoted post so that we're keeping the knowledge and expertise within the service. And so we are able at the moment to be able to fill some of those posts. And obviously this is recognised as being very high priority for us in terms of continuity. I think you're asking about if somebody leaves, does then another named officer kind of pick up their pieces of work? So that would typically be the case, but we could get into a situation where I guess parents are emailing somebody and aren't receiving a response. What should always happen is there should be a bounce back saying that this person has left Bristol City Council with a contact number for a person who will be able to answer any queries. If that's not happening, then I can double check and make sure that every officer is familiar with how to set that up in terms of their systems.
I think me and Hugh had started a conversation about the list that parents and parent care forums and campaigners have sent before with there's like a flow chart about it that's really important to be made public. If they are being, officers are being told to put our office on, or if they leave in so on and so forth, we have it for our housing officers. I don't see why what the problem is with giving that information, having it on the council website even, so that, if your case officer leaves or you need to escalate the problem, I don't see what the secrecy is around putting that information out there. Sometimes officers put on the hours they work, and but why can't we have that information? If it's there in black and white, it would be really helpful to everybody, us as councillors and as parents.
I think we've had an exchange, haven't we, in regards to this, and my apologies time-wise, but we will follow it up. I did note in the response I sent to you that we don't tend to publish lists of officer names below a certain level of seniority, and that's pretty much the rule, although I know you found an example, or you said an example of an area where it isn't the case. But in this instance, I think that's what we prefer to do at this stage. There's a range of reasons, but I think the main one is just practicality, really, because people move around quite a lot and keeping it up to date is quite problematic. But let's have a conversation about it, and we'll find ways in which we can link people up with officers who will be able to give them the information they need with one phone call or one email, and then we'll be able to cover it off that way.
Councillor Craig, do you want to put anything? No. Okay, Councillor Weston.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Mine was actually just about the recommendation.
Oh,
So I'm so used to not requiring a microphone because I'm loud. It's one of it's the recommendation on the front is requesting working groups set up to agree. What's the composition of the working group? Who you envisage being on it? Quite intrigued with that. Is it
Well, we were talking about working with, I think Vicky articulated it earlier around working with Scrutiny around KPIs, so to bring to you some of the areas we think would make useful KPIs, but obviously also to get some feedback about other things missing from that you would like, and obviously what is established between us, what is practical and possible in terms of the data that we hold. But that's really what that was referring to. So I think probably working party probably means more about meeting with Scrutiny panel, and that would be, we'd be welcome to meet with all of you or some of you we really don't mind.
Yeah, that's why we just invited everybody, those who can attend. I think that's what we will do the same, so all of the people on Scrutiny members.
Okay, thank you. I was interested in all Chair.
Anybody else? Or are we happy then to agree the recommendations? If I propose the recommendations, then we're happy to second it and agree that. And the main recommendation is, of course, that we will have a working group, which is all of us. So, Councillor Weston, are you seconding?
Yeah.
Are we happy to agree that?
That would replace the work in the other group that.
No, this is not our one a year group, this will be just a one-off meeting with officers.
Yeah.
I say that's a yes, because no one's looking at it, so, fine, right, so, thank you very much.
And so in terms of future snapshots, this,
I think we would like to see a similar report to this at each meeting, if that's okay. Hopefully, each time it's going to look better, so at a certain point we will knock it off the agenda. Thank you very much. But yeah, this was exactly, I think, what we wanted to see. Yeah, everyone's very happy with that. Thank you. So I'll let you have leave while we start off on number 11, adult social care transformation. So this is particularly focusing on housing. And Julia, are you leading on this?
So this is the second of our topics.